patronizing people, even elected officials we love. So this is heartfelt. That's a tour de force, and that's the future of America. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
So let's cut to the chase. You answered really all of my questions. That's kind of hard to do for a bloviating former history professor. Speaking of professors, how about a round of applause for Jay Green, who did a great job filling in. This is a curiosity question, Governor DeSantis. I know that as you were coming in as governor-elect, you had to know that education was going to be something you leaned into. I've been curious the last few years. This is the first time I got a chance to ask you this. Were you surprised, A, by all of the pushback you got from the usual suspects, teachers, unions, et cetera, and also, B, in a good sense, the parents who came to your defense and said you were right on target?
Yeah, I mean, I think, well, even before COVID, I got elected in 2018. I came in, we had at that point, our school choice was effectively capped at about 100,000 students in terms of the low-income kids because it was a corporate tax credit scholarship program. I said I was going to expand that and we were going to make it a bigger program. Now, that went against current Supreme Court precedent in Florida. But the good thing is I inherited one of the most liberal Supreme Courts in the country, but within 3 weeks in office, I was able to replace 3 of the 4 liberals with conservative justices. And so we knew that we had a pathway because that decision that was made to strike down previous school choice was even criticized by like the Harvard Law Review as being a very adventurous reading of the Constitution. And so that was kind of the first fight. And the thing is, we anticipated getting sued by the unions, but they still haven't sued over it even to this day because I think they know they probably don't have a good leg to stand on. I think when we got into things like COVID, that was really, really significant political warfare. I think that there was a different agenda at stake at that time. I think there was a lot of it. They wanted things bad for the 2020 election. I think they had other things that they were trying to do. But clearly, the best interest of students was not there. And so of all the things we did, the amount of blowback that we got, and this is June of 2020, was really, really intense. But, my view is I'll take the arrows. I mean, that's what a leader does. I'm happy to do that. I didn't honestly know how it would work out politically. I mean, I was very confident in the data, and I thought that it would go, but I didn't know. But you have to stand for the right things, and if I'm saving their education, and then obviously with the other COVID stuff, people's jobs, if that were to somehow put me in jeopardy politically, well, so be it. That's the price of leadership, and that's just what you have to do. I was, though, surprised, because when we first had the kids back across the state, all the corporate media would show up at these schools, and they were just like, they almost like, they wanted to see like kids just like keeling over or something. They honestly believe this coming down from like New York City or something. So they're there like just acting like, oh, these Florida yokels, they don't know what they're doing kind of deal. But I knew it was going to be fine. But literally after like 4 or 5 weeks, I thought to myself, well, clearly you can't justify locking kids out of school given Florida has them in, so there was other states too. You clearly can't, and they just persisted. They did not change. They kept doing what they were doing. The evidence was mounting all the time that they were wrong, and they just refused to do what was right. So it's sad that was the case, but I was a little bit surprised because I just thought that once you saw it, Fauci can say whatever he wants, but if you see it, why would you not then do that? But what it showed is there was an alternative reality that was created, part of it by corporate press. Obviously, the bureaucracy had taken a position one way. They would never admit they were wrong on anything. But just a failure to open your eyes and consume the data and look at the experience. And that's what I would always say. When you look at like COVID, for example, I look back at Eisenhower's farewell address when he talked about military-industrial complex. Everyone remembers that. But he also talked about how with the rise of federal government funding a lot of scientific research, that there was a danger that public policy itself could be held captive by what he called a scientific technological elite. He was basically talking about a Fauci at the time. And he said that's not a statesman's role, is not to subcontract out to a, quote, expert. Statesman's role is to consider information from all these different sources, but you've got to harmonize that information and figure out what's best for society as a whole. And one of the things that I always told myself was, I am never going to just simply defer to an expert over observed experience. They said Sweden would crash and burn. It didn't happen. So I said Sweden was right and they were wrong. And that's just the way you have to do it. So that the school closures around this country were very disgraceful that those continued. And it was almost all these deep blue jurisdictions. In fact, if you do the in-person percent for 2020, 2021, and you colored each state by who was in charge, it's almost all red to blue. Almost all red to blue. That's just sad.
I want to ask you one follow-up question about our report card and a little bit of context there, and you know this well, as your staff does. People around this country are watching what's happening in Florida and a few other states that scored well on the report card. All of these folks in this room, as you know, are friends of your education reform and what Heritage is doing. We've got some special friends, Lloyd and B. Smith and the Pharaohs Foundation, who came to us in the last month and said, Kevin, you and the Heritage Foundation need to team up with Governor DeSantis, any governor, any state that wants to completely dismantle the power of the teachers' unions. That leads me to this question, and it's sort of a guy-to-guy question in terms of competition. Florida's number one on the report card. You alluded to the fact that you're not number one in school choice. What might we look forward to in the future in order for Florida to be number one in school choice?
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, I think in terms of the union influence, I think people saw it. A lot of people didn't realize the influence that they had. But when you have these bosses basically shutting the schoolhouse door on so many kids around this country, is that who should be in charge, or should parents be in charge? And so we believe in Florida. We believe in Florida that it should be parents and students. And the thing is, majority of our teachers are not members of the union, but I believe in paycheck protection. If you do dues, you should write out the check. There should be no automatic dues. You should write out the check and do it. If that's what you want, then that's fine. What we do in Florida, though, is we tell the teachers who aren't member of the union, we do the malpractice premiums, and we handle that, which is the main reason why people want to do it. So that's all underwritten by the state of Florida, so there should be no pressure to want to do it if you don't want to. And a lot of the teachers, even some of the ones that are members of the union, are not happy with the leftist political activism that you see consistently, because most of them did not get into teaching for that reason. I'm not saying there aren't any teachers like that, but most of them, really wanted to get in and help students. And so I think that there's a lot of reforms there that would be good. We also will likely look at ways where we can modernize our scholarships. So, for example, in Florida, you get a scholarship, you do the tuition, and that's good. And that's good for it's great. I mean, there's a lot of good things about it. But there's an opportunity for some innovation with this. If it's basically an account that the parent can control that could be tuition, but also could be for tutoring and some other services, well, then you have an opportunity, and it'd be good for some teachers, too, because you literally, maybe you have a group of kids going to a private school, but maybe there's a really good English teacher that works for one of the district schools. You could have 10, 15 parents pull together, put some of their education money to that, and have that teacher tutor their kids. And so you have a huge opportunity for kind of micro education, and it'll be more like not just you're choosing the school. Yeah, you're going to be doing that, but the parent will be able to make a whole host of other choices to give their kids the most opportunity possible. So I think we will definitely work to make that happen.
Final question for you, Governor, is one in which I'll take a step back from education. And I know that not only the people in this room, but we have many people watching online, Floridians, Americans, probably people around the world, I don't think that's an exaggeration, are interested in hearing you answer a question like this. And it is, America has a lot of challenges. Policy challenges, cultural challenges, social challenges, financial challenges brought on and aggravated by the federal government. And yet, it seems to me that you probably woke up this morning very optimistic about the future of America. Why is that?
Well, I think what we've shown in Florida is that, yes, you see all these things happening around our country and really around the world. I think a lot of the destruction is being motivated by a leftist ideology, and as more institutions have been captured, they've tried to effectively shove that down the throats of the general public. But I think what we've shown in Florida is you can succeed, you can stand for regular people, and we can beat these elites across the board. We beat them on so many different things. And really, you know, our formula has been very simple. When the world goes mad, there's a premium on people that will just simply exercise common sense and will just speak the truth. And so we've done that. You know, a lot of what we've done are not revolutionary. It doesn't always sit well with legacy media. It doesn't always sit well with the political left. But the broader public, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. The other thing we do is we ground what we're doing in the core principles that have made this country great. And those are timeless principles. They're enduring truths. They don't always apply the same way in today's circumstances that they may have 30 years ago or 100 years ago. You know, President Reagan came in 1980 and had a great program. There were different issues then than there are now. And so you got to make sure that you're applying those principles in a way that are most responsive to the needs of the community. And then the final thing is, and this is unfortunate that this is the case, you know, across the board, it's not just for people like me, but when you're standing for what's right in this day and age, you better have a backbone. You better be displaying some courage because they're coming after you. If you're a parent, you go to a school board meeting, you know, they had the FBI mobilized even, but at a minimum, you're going to get smeared by the media. Somebody gets involved in helping candidates as a contributor. The media, if they're helping conservative candidates, the media and the left will attack that individual. Of course, somebody like me, I roll out of bed in the morning and the left has a spasm. That's just the way it goes. But the point is just that standing for what's right, exercising leadership, whether it's as an individual citizen, somebody running for school board, or somebody running for governor or being governor, it's not cost-free in this day and age. It's not cost-free, and it's going to require some sacrifice. But the way I view it, when I'm always getting hit, people are like, aren't you upset? Does it bother you? It doesn't, because honestly, dealing with all the flack is so much smaller and easier than what so many other people have done to sacrifice for us over the years. And I'll just end by this. What I think of when the arrows come is, I was a member of Congress for 3 terms. I've recovered from that experience. I didn't drink the Kool-Aid. But you'd fly up and back to D.C., and one of the routes that you would take you right parallel the National Mall. So you come down, you look out that left side of the plane, you see the Lincoln Memorial, you see the reflecting pool, you could see MLK Memorial, Jefferson off to the side, Washington Monument, and then a majestic view of the Capitol building. And it's like those are very symbolic, and it makes you feel kind of good to be an American because you understand the ideas that represents. But what I figured out after doing that a number of times is that the best monuments were not at the left side of the plane. Because if you looked out the right side of the plane, you would have to look across the Potomac River into Northern Virginia. And the monuments there were very nondescript. They were very small. They were arranged very orderly up and down some rolling terrain. They were the headstones at Arlington National Cemetery. And it occurred to me that you can have all these great ideas that are symbolized by what everyone was looking at the left side of the plane on the National Mall about. And it's great and it's important because you don't want to be founded on bad principles. But unless you had the people that are resting in Arlington throughout our whole history that have been willing to stand up for those principles, risk their lives, and indeed in many cases give their lives, those principles would not amount to very much. And so as we get into these fights, whether it's education, all these other things, you know, I have a 5, a 4, and a 2-year-old that my wife and I try to keep up with at home. We obviously want a better life for them and our grandkids and all that, and that's important. But we also owe it to the people that have sacrificed so much to make this a great country. And so we're trying to do justice to their memory. So you can attack me all you want. That's not even close to what other people have gone through so that we could be free.
Thanks so much, Governor.